Hey there, welcome to episode 8 of the FFS Talk audio program. I'm your host, Dan Hugo. I'm recording this on the morning, midday, just before noon, on January 17, 2024. A lovely Wednesday here in Vegas. Another solo show. This show is usually solo, but this is one that I would, as it reboots, as we get more episodes going and some momentum, it's a show where I would actually like to talk about what works and what does not, and what we can do about it with subject matter experts or people in general with an informed opinion. But in the meantime, today we are going to talk about online angst and what we can do about it. These first few weeks of January of our new year have seen some fairly high-profile YouTubers exclaiming their need to take a break, step back, retire, and so on. This is the show notes summary of the show, by the way, I'm reading, because I think it sums it up. What about we normal folk? We are continually overexposed and consuming overexposure. We're all connected and dependent on social media platforms. So rare that we have personal interactions, and even emailing each other has become passé. I must DM you, you must DM me, and so on. Can we escape this? And if so, who do we tell? You must announce these things, no matter who you are. As always, the show notes include some relevant links. First of all, my shameless self-promotion, buymeacoffee.com/DanHugo. I know I do this for every episode, but I want to get the word out that not only is this a way to support the show, if you would like to literally buy me a coffee, because any funds that come in through there do go for coffee beans or coffee-related accessories. Accoutrement. Is that even applicable? But it is also where I basically have an out-of-band profile page. It's not associated directly with a personal blog or a business thing or a media-related site or anything like that. So it's one-stop links to the various things I'm working on, powered by coffee. If you would like to support this effort, other than being a guest or sharing, telling a friend, hey, these podcast programs are pretty decent. I know that's a stretch. As well, my coffee, whatever, ko-fi.com/DanHugo. If there's one reason to have a name that you don't have to wonder how it's pronounced, this is a good example. Clearly it's coffee, but it's ko-fi.com/DanHugo, buymeacoffee.com/DanHugo. There I shall leave it. So there are a couple of YouTube videos here, which, for better or worse, they're YouTube videos, but highly relevant for today's episode. The first one, a creator called Oompaville, because this is the 21st century. Actually somewhat interesting, an energetic presenter person. When did the world revolve around creators and presenters and content and likes and friends? And anyway, he has a video that just came out recently. Why is everyone leaving? ? And he comments on a few of these people that are departing the platform. These are more well-known people, or definitely well-known people. He does a reasonable job and lists several, so there's some volume to his presentation, as in a substantial list. I'm not going to go quite as deep as he did on the individuals, and that's part of the thing, is the crossover community of content creators. I recently learned that Oompaville is partnered with, is in a couple relationship with another creator, Call Me Chris, who is super creative. I have to say, I've seen her content over the years. Her production, her efforts, really creative, really interesting. And I had no idea. Apparently they've been a couple for a little while now, but that is something to think about, which I'll get into. I didn't really put it in my notes, but we'll see what I come up with. But two of the big, giant, super high profile announcements that have really caught everyone's attention, I've linked to those. The Tom Scott announcement that he is he was producing a video per week for like 10 years. And these are intense videos. These are not sitting, or as I am standing at your computer, whipping out 20, 30, 60 minutes, 90 minutes. He was traveling. He was creating serious, really interesting, educational, completely amazing, really, to be honest, content, productions, videos, documentaries, insightful commentary for years. And I do have, in fact, another link at the end I'll get to, which is great. It's a really great presentation, in my opinion. So Tom Scott announced recently, you can watch the video for the details, that he's basically taking a break and he may or may not come back. Odds are he will be more of a producer rather than in front of the camera, maybe behind the camera or really behind the camera, way back behind the camera. It's an interesting thing now. People are speculating. What does that really mean? Who knows? But he took the time to create, and it was timed specifically for a particular time on a particular day to announce that he was taking a break, leaving, might not come back. The other one, Matt Pat, also a YouTube link to this video, he announced that he is leaving the internet, and he was sobbing a little bit, and it was obviously heartfelt. I find it interesting that he and several other people have indicated that they like, that they will miss, that they have always enjoyed the conversation, which I suppose there is a live channel. By the way, Matt Pat, so Tom Scott does sort of documentary or educational or insightful productions. Matt Pat is super high energy, very intelligent, does deep dives. He started with the game theory or the game theorist, and then movie theorist, I think it was. And then, but one of the ones I really enjoyed was the food theorist. And then he has style theorist, which I've never seen, I have to be honest. And there's a GT Live, I think it is, which I've never seen. I'm not really into the gaming. The movie theorist was interesting, but the food theorist was really fascinating. And I just linked to his McDonald's as a real estate company video in a Quaggling Sand episode from this week. Those are all linked in my Buy Me a Coffee profile. There you go. So those two announcements, super high profile, got a lot of people talking on the internets, and that is where everything happens, of course. So all the YouTubers, because they all cross pollinate, there's always something to talk about in the form of another YouTuber. So this stirred up a lot of opinion content, and one could argue I'm doing that here. But I'm not really commenting on these people in particular, though I will say both of these people are super talented. Their high-profile status is well-deserved. They were definitely raising the bar. So good stuff, and their impact will be felt. I think one thing that's lost, I know I haven't even gotten into the show yet, one thing that is lost, though, in these situations is that on legacy, classic media like television, radio, people retire. People have lives outside of their online or media presence, which people often forget, especially nowadays, the way content creators work, the way they build their shows or their presence. So people are allowed to stop what they're doing. They shouldn't turn it into the reason for living, and it shouldn't be something where their parasocial relations are putting pressure on them to continue and so on. So it's sort of an interesting thing to watch, and we shall watch at a safe distance. I'm also linking once again to the Posse article on indieweb.org. Posse, P-O-S-S-E, publish on your own server. So P-O-S, publish on your own server. And S-E, syndicate everywhere. That means own your content and sure, push a video out to YouTube or something on Instagram or Reel or whatever, TikTok, etc. But always own your content. Always connect directly with your audience, your customers, clients, etc. So we'll get to that. And then finally, a really, really interesting Tom Scott presentation at the Royal Institute in the UK. There is no algorithm for truth. It is a fine example of the work that he does. Just really interesting individual. Really, I'm going to assume that it's he is a sincere character. He certainly exudes that. So I think he's very talented, and he's been a good addition to counterbalance some of the less awesome content that one can find in various social media platforms, YouTube certainly among them. So the way we can begin is quite easily the content creators are tired. I have never been a YouTuber. I have been a podcaster, and I know even the audio programs I'm producing at present, as I'm speaking right now, I produce 4 audio programs per week. I don't spend a lot of time trying to get guests, so I do my own research on the topics. They are topics that are leaning into my local community, the greater Vegas area, in areas like economics, entrepreneurial ecosystem, innovation, things like this. This program are about like problem solving, or they should be. And then Quaggling Sand is really just stories, tales, with some sort of connection to a great many things. So I'm not chasing an audience and trying to feed an algorithm and so on, but it's still, I apply pressure to myself to keep up a weekly schedule, because once you let it slip, it's so easy, like everything else. Oh, I'll just skip 1 week. It becomes 2, becomes 4, becomes 6 months. And that's why Quaggling Sand and FFS Talk rebooted, because they were set on the back burner. Obviously, it was an interesting time, but while I cannot identify completely with the YouTuber angst, the super category of online angst, you can see it. So many people have been recording themselves. The Justin TV revelation, like, oh, I can just follow myself around and publish video at all times. It worked for Max Headroom, right? Have video always, all the time, 24/7. In that case, it was news, but quote unquote news. But it was this notion of like content, and of course ad-driven content, blipverts. These were sort of the undoing, in fact, of that universe. Only 20 minutes into the future. So I think one of the issues, I do not make the podcast notion, I do not make my audio programs an integral part of my life. I believe it is very easy if you became a YouTuber, and this is a common thread through some of these long time, 10 plus year producers, content creators. I think producer is more general and probably more appropriate. But these are people that started off before monetization, before advertising and adpocalypse and all the drama. The common thread is I started in my bedroom, or I started with nothing to say and nobody to say it to, but they kind of jumped in, early adopters, right? So when an early adopter starts with no business plan, they didn't start with a goal. They didn't start with like, I am going to get to 1 million followers or subscribers or whatever. You just do it for fun. And I believe, my opinion, that this hobby transitions into a job, right? Like, ooh, I can actually make money doing this. I will quit my day job and become a full-time YouTuber. And that's a story we've heard many times. If you follow any YouTubers, and I'm focusing on YouTube, Twitch, Kick, Locals, various platforms, Float Plane, any. When content creation becomes your job and it is your own entrepreneurial endeavor, right? I've turned a hobby into a job, no longer a side gig, etc. I believe it is very easy to bring bad habits into the mix. That is, if you started your channel by sitting in your bedroom talking about the day, and that becomes your channel, like, ooh, I have a following, I'm going to stick with that formula. And you end up with like everything in life becomes potential content, and you're monetizing, you're feeding an algorithm and so on. So I can imagine that becomes extremely fatiguing. And eventually when that line gets blurred, life, work, life, balance, what? This seems like it's almost certainly a road to exhaustion. So that's completely understandable. And I have to say, the reactions from most people that I've seen, I mean, I basically let the YouTube algorithm, prescient, make some recommendations. So once you watch an Oompaville and a MatPat announcement and so on, you're just going to get 25 more videos espousing the rigors and the upsides of being a content creator on YouTube, and then very little in the way of critical reception to these announcements. It's been mostly sympathy, as in people get it. There's been empathy from actual longtime content creators and producers. So they're like, yeah, I know what that feels like. So completely understandable. None of this should be a surprise. And one of the things that I can't imagine being healthy is the inside baseball, the sniping, the doxing. That's where you share contact information for somebody. The warfare that takes place in this weird sort of insular, not isolated by any means, but insular in that YouTubers, and I mentioned earlier, the Oompaville producer has his YouTube channel and show and content, and he is dating. He refers to her as his girlfriend, so I think that's the right term. Call Me Chris, which she's another content creator, very creative. So the insular community sort of it's sort of like celebrities in Hollywood and so on. They end up dating, getting married, getting divorced in the public eye, but they understand the plight of the other. So I can see where this happens, but you end up with every aspect of the personal lives of these various online celebrities, or celebrities if you're Adam Curry. I always like that pronunciation. If you are a celebrity, whether traditional definitions or the new age media definition applies, everything you do is online. And if you are feeding that is, if you're a celebrity and the paparazzi follow you around and they want to get a picture of whether you're holding hands with somebody or canoodling, whatever, goofy word, we know what that is. So if everybody wants to know who's dating whom, what are they doing? Are they getting divorced, getting married, having kids, whatever? When you are a content creator and your life has become the topic of your channel and in fact the source of your income, you almost feed that yourself. So I can't imagine that's healthy either. I don't know what that would be like. There are people that post on Instagram when they start dating, or, and I've done it. Everybody's done it where I met somebody, or you mark that I'm in a relationship with on Facebook back in the day, that kind of stuff. You are feeding that whole thing, and these parasocial attachments that your community, quote unquote, I'm putting my air quotes up, when these parasocial relationships become like adversarial, like you're a sports team or something, like, oh, you said something about that person, or, oh, they broke up and she cheated on him or he cheated on her or whatever. There's like a team of chanting weirdos that you've never met taking action on your behalf because they think that's the right thing to do. There's a whole list of things that just seem, and I've only learned of these things probably like you have, which is if you consume any content by anyone, see, I keep using that word too, the C word. If you consume these things, if you consume these productions, these video, audio, or other, you cannot help but notice that there's a very, I guess the word could be incestuous. I don't know. That's not really a great word, but the community of content creators bickers, fights, dates, loves, hates amongst themselves. And though all of those acts become potential content that they can monetize, and then they can comment on each other's content and react to it. And commentary and reaction has become an entirely separate thing that is also monetized. So it just becomes a feedback loop of how can I make money on my life or my comments and views on the lives of others. And because so much content media is published from all of these people, it's a small matter to clip this and edit that. There you go. You're up and running. So what a crazy world. It's sort of like open source software. That seems like a stretch. I would like to use this library and that library and integrate them and build something myself and all that. it's all there for the world to see, but I don't know that it's as healthy. Although, open source developers also face some either self-inflicted or publicly inflicted stress when it comes to fixing bugs and maintaining a project that has become bigger than they thought it might. So same can happen with YouTube channels, I imagine. So from that perspective, anytime you do something and it really catches on, I remember there was a UPS commercial back in the day when online commerce became a thing, fulfillment by UPS, and they show a startup. The founders are all gathered around we just launched our website, and there's a little order counter, and it starts clicking up, and they're celebrating, and then it starts clicking up super fast, and they're like, uh-oh. So strangely, it's a problem we all think we wish we had until we have it, and then you're like, oh, this is not going to work. Now there's yet more work to do to undo this situation we've gotten ourselves into. So I can imagine that content creation becomes something similar if you become very popular. But for the rest of us, I am not in that group. I am not very popular. The sooner we all accept that, like the vast majority of us are not raking in millions of dollars. You can't. That's just not how it works. So I have to wonder, you listening to this right now, you can ask, you can play along. So I have a list of things here. Do you apologize for not posting on a regular basis, maybe daily? And I don't mean you're a professional content creator. I just mean you post probably on Instagram or TikTok. If you have a following of some sort, you explain to them that you are going on vacation this weekend. You're taking some time off because you're having a surgery, whatever it is. I have seen people on the monetized side. So we'll say they're professional content creators. I've seen them comment that, oh, I took a week off and I lost 60,000 followers or whatever, like these massive numbers of people, I guess, decided they didn't appreciate your life taking some sort of precedence over their entertainment. So they teach you a lesson, I guess. Yeah. Are you chasing an algorithm and checking your analytics for trend changes? That is, especially on LinkedIn, which I've just recently thrown my hands up at. The LinkedIn algorithm is notoriously discussed on LinkedIn and elsewhere. You must post this number of times. You must have this many hashtags. You must tag people. Most importantly, you must have content that does not link off the site. You must post native content, etc. I don't know, number of times per week, number of words or characters, I guess, pictures, all this stuff, all these rules to make sure that the people that are following you even see what you're saying. So you've taken this relationship that is, I am interested in being connected to you and maybe even interested in what you have to say. But in order for me to see it, you have to feed this platform what they want. So I even know that you exist. So are you in that trap? Ugh, sorry. Have you ever signed up for a new platform as soon as possible so you can be sure to get the same name you use everywhere else? And this obviously applies. A lot of these apply to business too. But if you are just a normal person, who knows? You might become a business, a brand in your own self. So you got to have that same name everywhere. I have fallen into that trap. I'm often Dan Hugo, DanHugo, on social media platforms of old. Instagram, I had to take Dan Hugo because somebody beat me to it. Wait a minute, I'm still me. I could have any name I want. And by the way, I have an idea for that. I think individual people, like you, should be able to say, I'm going to follow so-and-so, that's so-and-so, on a social media platform. On Twitter, for example, or X or whatever the hell it's called. I happen to be Dan Hugo, although I don't really use Twitter anymore, so don't bother with this. But as an example, I might be Dan Hugo 328 on Twitter, but I would like you to know me as Dan Hugo. So why can't the client side, why can't the software that I use, and it could be associated with my account, right? So this configuration could follow my account on this platform. Like I'm going to assign Dan Hugo to Dan Hugo, what is it, 328? Is that what it said? So forever after, if I type at Dan Hugo, it's going to do the right thing on the back end. So I am not responsible for getting the right name. I could be just 3218732 or whatever. I'm not going to repeat that number because I just made it up. But I can associate a name. Now, you might associate a name for me that is more appropriate. Maybe you know me as Daniel Hugo, or maybe you just want to say Mr. Hugo or DH or whatever, right? You type that in, and your association, you might have an even less flattering term you want to use. You type that in, or you select it, or however you are interacting with your engagement on the platform. You can type that in, and then the computer, doing what it's intended to do, will say, oh, your mapping of that name that you typed in, the nickname, we even have a word for it. The nickname that you have typed in is associated with Dan Hugo 328. So on the platform side, it will publish that. And then anyone who sees at Dan Hugo 328 on their view of the world will see, oh, that's Dan Hugo, or oh, that's Daniel Hugo, or that's DH, or whatever. Yeah, we should get there someday. So we're not chasing, I guess the scarcity driver is what does it, draws people to the platform. But it's fixable. It should be fixed. Another way to go is to just have your own social media platform. Also doable now. So, but I've been there. I've done that. I have rushed. I've signed up for new platforms just to sign up, get the name, never use them again. And that's been over the last many years, of course. These platforms didn't really survive for whatever reason. There you go. Do you use the unfollowing and blocking and whatever as passive-aggressive actions against people? Do you feel others do this to you? I put "do this to" in quotes in my notes, as in it's a passive-aggressive action, but it's like weaponizing these fake connections. And unfortunately, we've all done it. You've done it. I've done it. We've done it. It's been done to us. I guess they blocked me for whatever reason. And it almost becomes a joke now in some cases. A rite of passage. The cancellation movement has become a part of that, etc. That becomes the platform becomes a tool of chaos, I guess, which I don't like. I definitely block that. Do you assume everyone you know is following your content? And by know, I suppose I should put that in quotes too. Know on this social media platform. You assume they are following your content, and so you bypass normal human interactions. Hey, Dan, how you doing? Oh, I posted on Instagram. Didn't you see it? Or similar. Didn't you see my latest TikTok? Didn't you see my Twitter post from 3 weeks ago? So these yet more handing over our personal presence to platforms that we don't control, that they are fueled by your basically capitulation to the new norms, which are, oh, I don't want to talk to you. I'm just going to post a picture or a video, more likely a video, with my comments and an ad placement so that I can monetize our interactions. And you can DM me if you want. Oh, I have to be a member of a platform. You have to be following me in order to communicate with the person I already know. Okay. Does your livelihood depend on your online engagements? And so have you blurred your own lines between life and work? Now, this is not, if you have a business, I have really cool technologies. If I had a social media account, really cool technologies, which I don't. I think I had a Facebook page at some point, but if I post on my business page about my business, about products and services and so on, that's different. That's marketing, advertising. But if you have your Twitter or Instagram or TikTok, and especially if it's associated with your name, and you are monetizing that, so whatever you're wearing, whatever you're using, wherever you're eating, whatever you're drinking, traveling, etc., if you are making money from that, you get, and if you watch the MatPat video, you can see he describes sitting at dinner with his wife, Steph. They are partners on this project for some 10 years. I think it was 13 total years. He said, when you're having dinner and you're talking about business and content ideas, and if you're playing a video game and saying, oh, this would make great content for the game theorist, he said it's too much. So when you're blurring those lines and I used to do this with food trucks, by the way. As a food truck fan, I enjoyed the business. I enjoyed the culture. I enjoyed the dynamics of moving vendors, moving customers, different venues, and so on. So it was an interesting topic. And I would post foodie pics and I would tag the event location. And that became like the bulk of my social media interactions for a while on Twitter and Instagram. And at some point you're like, maybe I should just enjoy what I'm doing, who I'm talking to, what I'm eating or drinking, where I am. I can actually put the camera down. I used to be emphatic about like, oh, I have to take the picture before I touch it, so it's as presented. And that attention to detail was appreciated, but at some point you're like, maybe I should just enjoy why I'm here. I've come to this event to have some cuisines of creators in their own right. Why don't I just enjoy that rather than being their marketing department? So it's something to think about. I never monetized any of that. So just playing along in the game of mobile vending. So my own story, as which I sort of started transitioning to already. Part one, yes, I had to get Dan Hugo on all the platforms. So I've already touched that. Dan Hugo on Instagram, and on GitHub, actually, which you may or may not be aware of, but GitHub is really kind of a social network now. The star problem is a thing. So anyway, I have fallen victim to the battle of unfollows and blocks. I have unfollowed and blocked people. This is particularly, I would say, important almost in a platform like LinkedIn, where having common connections with people can be good. But if you say, and in fact, I did a whole podcast about this episode on Cafe Genius Impresarios, could just as easily have been a Quaggling Sand story, although that's only just rebooted, about a person named Russell Wayne Deviney, who connects on LinkedIn, starts using that network connection to talk, hey, I'm friends with these people here in Vegas, myself included. And he turned out to be a violent criminal, and he is presently in prison. Good for him. That's unfortunate, though. Having that connection can sometimes lead to name dropping and artificial and worse, stolen credibility. Like, I am connected to these 10 people, therefore I am a credible connection for you. So I think in that case, depending on how people are perceiving those connections, it's important to manage the connections there. But in general, if you're using unfollows and blocks and other tools like this to passively aggressively comment or express disdain for someone, that can start consuming your day, which I think is ridiculously unhealthy. So for me, it's just easier to not use these platforms. I can actually talk to people, and I'm trying to encourage people to use email. I've had the same email address for 22 years. I've had the same business email address, reallycool.com, since 1996. So yeah, email me. I've had those names specifically so that you can reach me. That was the whole story of reallycool.com. I wanted to have my own email domain so my address wouldn't change. That is how it has worked out. I've spent more time over the years online than in real life, though I've been fortunate having been in various positions to spend more time in real life than with some people. So that is to say, especially recently, I think during the pandemic time of 2020, 2021, a lot of people were communicating online, the work from home movement, the remote everything, grocery deliveries, and so like, I don't even want to go to the store, right? Luckily, and this has been useful just to stay in touch with, your college friends, your high school friends. Facebook was an unfortunate, and I just commented on this on our connection and communication episode of Quaggling Sand this week. Facebook was an awful move for connecting with your college friends, your alums, but this has enabled people to stay in touch when they care to, when they need something, often. But it has also made it faux easier to pretend to be in touch, the illusion of connection, as I like to say, rather than meeting people in person. So as I just said, though, I've luckily been in positions where I get to go talk to people. My role with Intel involved a lot of traveling, meeting people in person in different places. and then Vegas is a place where many people visit. So there's always an opportunity to run into someone who I have not heard from in multiple years. And then they decide, oh, I will be in town. And Dan is probably sitting around being a Vegas resident, waiting for contact from visitors. All 40 million. I do get 40 million emails per year. Hey, I'll be in Vegas next week. What are you doing? But I think I had handed over too much interpersonal contact, not physical contact, but just interpersonal discussion, communication, sharing of updates and stories and life in general. Handed that way too much over to the Facebooks and the Instagrams of the world. No longer. So that was leading up to about 2 years ago. Stopped using Facebook, about 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago. Stopped using Instagram completely more than a year ago. Stopped using Twitter during 2023 and have officially deprecated LinkedIn on January 1st, 2024, which is confusing for some. So that was my first bullet item for the part 2 here. Here is where earlier I said you apologize for taking time off. The utilitarian nature of LinkedIn, I guess, led to me doing this experiment. For 1 year, I had created a sort of a European style exit. So it's a generic human figure. It looks like running, but going through a square. And it started off green, and then for the last 3 months of the year, October, November, December, and then January 1st. So the first of each month turned red. This was me leaving, right? And I would say, hey, and it said day 0, day 31, day, etc., to day 365, which was January 1st, 2024. So this was fair warning to anyone not only connected to me and paying attention to whatever I was posting on LinkedIn, which was less and less over the year, but it was fair warning to say, hey, I am not necessarily living on this platform anymore. And I've heard that comment from people. A lot of people live here, so I have to use LinkedIn. Not true. You should be able to communicate with human beings without LinkedIn being a part of the conversation. And I'm leaning into that 100%. So that's my current story with social media. So the LinkedIn presence will remain. I think they do a reasonable job at the social network, the network graph, the actual network. Former colleagues, classmates from education, current contacts in different related industries and so on. There is some value there. The fact that people post their native content there to feed the algorithms, to be seen, you must be following the right person to get I put it on LinkedIn. No, that doesn't work. This is the problem with Instagram, for example, that breaks the internet by not supporting the same kind of linking. They've done very minimal efforts towards making something work of that. Discord, Slack, any of these silos where you must register, you must be accepted in some cases. They each have their policies about what you're allowed to post and what you're not. Can they be found via searching? No. Oh, that was in the Discord. Didn't you see that we discussed this thing? Well, I'm not a member of the Discord, but I am a member of this geographical region. Why must I follow the city Twitter account to learn what the hell's going on, etc., right? Or Discord or whatever. So these you must be signed up and following and paying attention and have the app and the notifications and so on. Somehow the world communicated a little bit without needing all these things. So there's a lot of extra baggage owned by others involved in this, and I'm sort of tired of it. The old internet was the wild, wild west. You could, as I did, buy your own domain, publish your handcrafted HTML pages, and thanks to the way the Netscape Navigator and later other software tools were constructed, the way HTML works, the way it's parsed, you could make some mistakes and it would do a reasonable job trying to get what you attempted to publish so that people could read it. And then you could fix it and you could view the source of any page and so on. So the world of web publishing started off very much as give it a try, see what happens. And I think all of that has been handed over. Anytime a platform, Threads, the Instagram, Twitter knockoff or whatever they're aiming for, You'll see a comment now. Oh, they let you search hashtags. They let you do this. They let you do that. I think that's problematic. I think you should be enabled, not be abled. You should be enabled to to have a platform meet some certain expectations, but you should also feel empowered and enabled to run your own platform or to be a part of a particular platform that you have more say in. So you can run your own Mastodon server. Why not? You can run your own blog. You can run your own PeerTube instance. You can run your own. There's an Instagram knockoff. It's written in PHP. Unfortunately, it will come to me. Maybe it won't. Anyway, you're no longer beholden to these platforms. The question is, will people follow you? And the answer is, well, were they following you on these other platforms? Why? Oh, because it was just easy. Okay. So the reason that you're publishing your vacation photos on Instagram is so that people will see them. Or are you publishing them so that your friends will see them? Or are you just publishing them so that they're out there for someday in the future? You may want to, oh, look, here's when I was in Rome that one time, and to be able to point to it in a conversation, link to it in an email, etc. We all have our different reasons, but the fact is you can do these things without having to secure an Instagram username and get followers and share it with your friends and make sure people are seeing it and using the analytics to see how many people have seen it and how many likes and what. I think it's Louis C.K. who said, put your phone down, live your life. So this Wild Wild West notion was like, be experimental, do new things, try some ideas out, put your words later, your pictures, and then much later your videos, and the bandwidth required in storage have only become cheaper. Own your content. When you hand it over to Facebook and they use it the way they see fit, when you hand over stuff to YouTube and they decide who gets to see it based on their monetary plans, their monetization scheme, their time viewed and number of clicks. I can't remember what it's total minutes viewed, all these metrics that they use. Maybe you just want to post a video of your dog on a skateboard. So you post it on YouTube, it's there, whatever happens from that. But you can own that content. You can publish that video anywhere else almost at this point. And you can put it on YouTube too, but make sure you own that video. Make sure you have it always available where you can point people. They may discover it on YouTube, but make sure they come to you for your works. And by the way, if you own your content, you get to decide if an AI robot can train its model on what you have to say. If you post it on Facebook, you've handed it over to them and they can train their models all day on what you've posted. So something to think about. We should definitely return to those old days, and I am doing that. Now, like I said with the LinkedIn, departing these platforms requires a warning and explanation. Just as with these high-profile content creators, you must announce, give people lead time so that they feel okay about it, so they can discuss, they can comment, they can react, they can create their own content based on your announcement, they can lament, recover. So you must announce ahead of time, and then you must also face the sort of the refractory period once you are finished, once you retire, once you leave a platform. Like I fully expect for the next year at least that I will need to remind people that don't direct message me on LinkedIn. Email me. I've been saying all through the year, hey, my email address is current, correct, and visible in my profile. If we are connected on LinkedIn, you can see my email address. Use it. And I still get direct messages. And then the few times I've responded as the year was winding down for 2023, I would say, hey, use my email address. I'm not DMing. And then people would DM, oh, okay. Or then they would continue a direct message thread, and I just ignore it because where is this going to go? So I think this it hands over too much of our connections to this third party. And they have a profit motive. I don't know if you know this, but Microsoft owns LinkedIn. Something to think about. And they're training AI models, by the way. And they want you to post native content, which means they own your content. They can train. They don't have to worry about offsite linking and all that. So conspiracy theory hat off. So these are the problems, mostly from the perspective of an individual. But if you have a business, I'm going to say there are two sort of grossly separate business uses of these platforms. One is promoting your other business that is a product or a service, a location, your food, your drink, your food truck, your restaurant, your retail establishment, your consulting services, whatever it is. So you use social media or an event like, hey, join us at CES, see our booth and whatever. You post pictures and videos and you try to draw people to a place or to take a certain action. That's one kind. The other kind is the content itself. You are a content creator in that precise sense of the word. You make money by being online, by being in front of the camera, by holding up products, by mentioning advertiser, ad reads, product services. You are paid to be you, and that is, you are your business, or maybe you have a business and you are its main personality, the face of your own company. So I think those are two different things, which I'll get into. But if you are the business side of the former, if you have a product or service, a business, a company, etc., algorithmic discovery is fine. This is how advertising has worked forever. The adage, 50% of my advertising works. I'm not sure which 50% kind of works, right? Like, I know a lot of people read that magazine. I will put my ad in that magazine. I don't know if anybody found me through that magazine, but my sales went up. Therefore, they probably found me in that magazine. And replace magazine with newspaper, billboard, television program, radio program, bus stop, bench, etc. So allowing people to discover you, encouraging them to discover you, or in the modern era, having an algorithm that tries to feed a consumer what the platform believes will net them maximal revenue might work. It might be fine. But if that's the way that people find you, you're casting a huge net. That's the 50% thing. I don't know which half, but I'm paying for all 100%. So I know I very rarely click through on advertisements online because they're usually not really relevant. So you're paying for all this, and some work, some don't. But these are my opinions, but they're just based on my on my time on the internet since the very early days when I was working at Netscape, etc. You should really make sure that you are dictating your own content, not feeding it out. Now, you can feed the algorithm with a particular advertisement, but really, I can't stress this enough. Make sure that your audience knows where you are. I noticed this the first time 20 years ago or something. I think it was Toyota was like, follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/Toyota, whatever it was. You're like, Toyota is like a global brand recognized for quality vehicles, and they're handing over their engagement with their customers. Obviously, their customers driving cars, that's another form of engagement. But why are you pointing them to Facebook? Why aren't you pointing them to Toyota.com and implementing some sort of a mailing list or some other engagement? They're using Facebook to engage with people, and now you're subject to Facebook monetization and advertising and all the other games that they play, or that they have been playing for decades. Yeah. So use legacy social media platforms to point your fans, clients, customers, community to your own properties. That's basically what I just said, but have a website, have some online presence that you control, and then use these social media platforms to point to you. You are only pressured, if you will. You can look at your own numbers. You can look at your own traffic. You can say, hey, we're getting more visitors and we're getting more sales. Maybe those are related. But if you must rely on the social media algorithms to determine, hey, we're spending money on advertising, but we're getting no sales for it. Well, who knows who's seeing these advertisements, etc. So own your property, have people visit your property from these social media platforms, or however, the Google SERP, search engine result page, or probably even more common into the near term, some sort of a chat, quote unquote, AI tool might recommend that they visit your website for a particular query that someone offers. So, and then take advantage now of this return to experimental time. So yeah, you can embrace the AI components. You might build your own ChatGPT tool. I don't know what they're calling it, chat client. You can embrace Posse, the POSSE, publish on your own servers, syndicate everywhere. So that's basically owning your website and using legacy social media to point to yourself So drive traffic to you. Don't drive your followers, customers, fans, etc. to somebody else's platform that's using your name, even though you provided it. Take advantage of federation, take advantage of decentralization. You can host your own servers. You can be a part of a particular locality, for example, our Mastodon.Vegas server that we will launch one of these days. Now that I had a initial discussion with Amazon about hosting. That's an Innovate for Vegas thing. Take advantage of these things and try to focus on user-oriented consumption. That is, let the user decide what they see and lean into that. And yeah, the algorithms and the For You pages and the recommendations and all this will still be there. But I think handing people control may be a welcome change of pace after 20 plus years of being told what to look at, what to read and listen to, and so on. And what about the personal side? I have to take my own advice. Take a more active role in your media consumption. So there can be just as much fatigue on the consumer, fan, client, customer, community side as there is on the creator side, which was where this began. So if you find yourself being stressed about, I got to follow this, I got to find that. I don't remember which platform I saw that on. Oh, my For You page on TikTok is becoming less and less sane. Like, I don't know about you. If you are a male, no matter what you start doing on TikTok, you're going to be fed a particular type of content because that's the content that keeps you scrolling through your recommendations, right? YouTube, I've commented on this elsewhere, especially in person. Watch one World War II history video and you are going to see a whole wall of Hitler, conspiracy, awful, it's history, but some of it's commentary. You're like, I just wanted to watch that one thing. And now YouTube immediately snaps back with, that's what you're going to be watching for the next 2 days. It can be just as stressful on the consumer side. Like, hey, I just wanted to watch The Game Theorist, but I watched a World War II video in there and now no more Game Theorists, right? Now I got to go hunting. So the recommendation page on YouTube, very powerful. Many content creators lament this and how it works against them many times. The bell, ring the bell, like and share and subscribe. All these directives are an attempt to try to be noticed in this sea of crazy. And as a consumer, as a fan, like, hey, I would like to see the things that I would like to see, but instead the algorithm is overfits, I think, with recent, I've been interested in this particular thing. Well, you're going to get nothing but that. So these platforms and their algorithms, well, why do they do that? Because they figure, if you're going to watch that, you're going to watch the next one and the next one, more opportunities to monetize. So are they looking out for your best interests or, well, we know. Put down your phone. Publishing your life in one way or transactions makes proximal and distal human interaction an afterthought. And I think this is part of the problem when you become a hobby turned monetized content creator in general, is that because you are centering yourself on this method of communication, this device, and all that it entails, it becomes a replacement for everything. So and like I said, I've had opportunities to travel, to meet people in person, so they could be next door or on the other side of the world. The value in that direct communication and connection, or just emailing the person. I know I'm emailing you and you can email me back. We're not posting for the public. We're not tweeting about something. It's an actual personal engagement that can be ongoing, right? I don't know if you've ever written a letter to anyone on paper with a pen or a pencil or whatever your writing instrument of choice, or even if you send them a picture, a postcard, you often do not have a copy of that handy. So when they respond, they're not quoting your original letter or other information that you've shared with them. So the conversation has to have a certain amount of personal engagement. You lose that with the modern era of quoted replies, or even more like a thread of conversation on a social media platform, or a bunch of photos or video content bickering back and forth. So one-sided parasocial engagements remove you from this need to be a proactive participant in a conversation. That's not always the case, but it is something to think about, and it's something that I think, my opinion, can introduce yet more of this fatigue. And again, if you start monetizing your online engagements, you're just blurring that line. And I have seen it. I have felt it to a small degree, although I think I've managed to avoid it and bail out before it became any sort of a real issue. But we have not evolved to delete social interaction. We are supposed to be social creatures. We're supposed to interact with people. Letter writing is important, so that's replaced by email and chat and SMS messages and so on. But when that gets replaced with, I must have a third party, you can argue that the mail, U.S. Postal or other postal services are playing that role in letter writing. But when Gmail launched this notion, we're going to put ads on your emails, which means we're reading your email. That was something that washed over everyone. Like, oh yeah, okay, sure. It's something to think about. We've kind of handed over everything, and that can be stressful on all sides of the transaction, unless you are a shareholder, in which case you're just counting your money. And take an active role in your online presence. Learn what the tools and methods are. Learn how personally identifying information can be used and abused. Learn how your location has become platinum. Uranium has become super valuable in a variety of ways. I read probably about 2 years ago, Google was going to start selling movement, time and motion study data about people living in communities, right? Like, hey, city planners, would you like to know where people go and when and how they get there? So they sell your information to city planners and so on. So unintended consequences of sharing and oversharing. You should be aware of how a same password used in multiple places can work. So there's all these things you kind of have to be aware of. There's just too many to mention. But because we've handed over so much to these platforms and corporate interests with a profit motive, we don't really worry about it. It's sort of like as a Volkswagen Bug owner when I was in high school, I knew how to adjust the valves and set the timing and change the oil and replace the shocks and all that. When you stop working on your own car or playing an active role and you just say, I don't know, fix it, you no longer know what's going on. You don't know how to repair, replace, what happens when your car won't start. Similar things. I didn't know that all of my information was stored at this third-party company that got hacked, and now, my genetic information is now available in the world, and so on. So yeah, take more control. That's just generally true, whether social media or otherwise. And then when the content is a business, that's where we'll kind of wind this up. When this is something I cannot identify with specifically, kind of a little bit, but when the grind that defeats many is creating content on your own, trying to feed an audience, trying to build an audience, that can be exhausting. That can be debilitating. I've seen it a little bit. I think we've all seen versions of it as depicted on the media that they are afflicted by. Creating a YouTube video about how YouTube is destroying your life is very meta, not the company. But this sometimes drives people to some fairly problematic and troubling choices and behaviors. I don't even want to mention, you can see some of the drama here and there. And again, once there's any sort of bickering, it can be escalated and it becomes fodder for content videos, and you get the artificial, like the availability heuristic. Like, oh, this must be important because I keep seeing YouTube videos about it and YouTube keeps recommending more YouTube videos about it. Therefore, it must be important. So I will watch more YouTube videos about it. The same thing happens with plane crashes, right? One plane crash will get all of the attention. And now it suddenly seems like plane crashes are a real problem. But, unless you're Boeing and the 737 MAX 9, then it is a real problem. But in general, you are being fed and steered towards information that is interesting and scintillating and leads to ad revenue. So I can absolutely see where that becomes problematic, and it's something you have to really be aware of. When your brand and you are connected directly with your consumers as early as possible, you hopefully have an opportunity to bring them with you if you need to make a change, if you need to Like you should always have your own website or online presence of some sort that you control and own. If a platform controls your content, consumers and the content itself, and your fans and customers are always finding you through this third party, probably YouTube, Twitch, etc., Twitter, X, Instagram. If this is your community, then you're not really self-employed. When I was a kid, my family owned a restaurant. My dad was fond of saying, you buy a restaurant to be self-employed, but a new boss walks through the door every few minutes, right? So you think you're self-employed, like, oh, I'm a content creator now, I'm a YouTuber, but you really have to do their bidding. If you ever wonder to the extent people will go for this, I'm self-employed, but I'm just not allowed to say these 25 different words, and I can't say these things in the first several seconds or minutes, and I have to do this and that. Yeah. If your community, and I always use that word in quotes, I don't like that word, it's overused, but if the people that want to see or hear you don't know how to find you, if your YouTube or your Facebook presence is somehow removed, this can happen if you are hacked, if your account is compromised. Suddenly you're not available where everybody knows how to find you. Like, oh, I was looking for the Toyota I wanted to buy a Toyota car and their Facebook page is not there. I don't know what to do. They should be going to the Toyota website. They should be going to your website. They should be able to find you, whether you're still on Instagram or YouTube or whatever. I've seen it too many times. We've all heard stories, but anytime somebody gets any sort of compromise on their presence on a social media platform, suddenly they are unreachable. I only stay in touch with my family through Facebook. That's why I'm using Facebook, etc. Well, suddenly you're unable to communicate. I'm not following the right person on LinkedIn, therefore I have no idea what's going on. These are broken models. You should control your online presence. And if you are monetizing your online presence, if you are your business and your business is you, only more true. You're placing your entire livelihood at risk by relying entirely on third-party platforms that you have no control over, no say in. You may have a YouTube representative that works with you. I can't remember what they call them. But end of the day, own your platform, own your brand, use these other platforms. And by the way, if people know where to find you, you can just say in one place, like, hey, I'm taking a week off. Oh, okay. If a show goes on hiatus, remember when television shows on normal television used to have seasons and then they would go on hiatus for the summer. They would show reruns and everybody was fine with that. And then the show would return. They'd celebrate the return, the new season of whatever is starting. Here, the grind, the algorithm, the monetization schemes, the competition, the fickle public means you must be creating content every 2 minutes or we'll forget about you entirely, right? There's always a million other content creators behind you and we will, so that's an undue amount of pressure. Ridiculous. Always, in my opinion, always connect directly, if at all possible, with the people that you want to communicate with. Finally, avoid burnout. If this is your business, operate it as a business. I think so many of these stories are, I just started this as a hobby and it became my livelihood. And it's very easy to take the hobby habits, like I must be on camera, I must be writing, I must be creating, I must be the contact. And you'll see some creators become very popular and they hire people and they build a studio and hey, that's more content to create. And good for them. But and I'm going to guess that the most successful long-term content creators do make it a business. And they have employees and they have employee responsibilities and they have a schedule and they try to meet that schedule. If your hobby becomes your work and you don't make that change, or by the way, if your work becomes your hobby, you can also reduce the amount of time and energy and money you're spending on your now hobby. From what I've seen, it's very easy to blur those lines permanently. You have to be aware of when this happens. You have to know, if you've ever been in a hypobaric chamber, like if you're in the military and you're flying in military aircraft at very high altitudes, they have you sit in a hypobaric chamber and remove your oxygen mask. So you're not breathing high partial pressure oxygen air. You're now hypobaric, right? You have a low pressure environment. you're getting less air to your brain. You have to recognize when that happens. So part of the training is you do it on the ground in this chamber. You remove your mask. You start to, your vision starts to become fuzzy. You start to black out. Maybe your fingers become numb. Your motor skills start to deteriorate very quickly. So you're unable to operate things. They have you. It happens that my AFGROTC NCO instructor worked in a hypobaric chamber at Williams Air Force Base in Chandler, Arizona. So we were in the chamber. We obviously, the military doesn't want random people going through this training. There's some medical concerns there, but the entire process was like, you have to be able to operate your equipment to try to recover. You have to be able to eject if you need to. You can't black out and have your plane crash into a mountain because you weren't awake. So if you have to be able to recognize these conditions as soon as possible, take corrective action, or at the very least, survive, right? Bail out, etc. So I'm going to guess, I'm going to assert that people who run into real burnout, real frustration, real angst, and worse, as a result of placing their lives online, unexpectedly exposing themselves entirely to the world for the sake of clicks, views, monetization, revenue, etc. I don't think they see it coming, and I think it runs them over. And if I could offer one bit of advice, even though, again, I've not been in this situation myself, but it's not uncommon in general, if you are entrepreneurial, to bite off more than you can chew. And we, unfortunately, get to see this play out in monetized form, unless you're demonetized, which YouTube has that right, as do all these platforms. But we can watch this happen as people devolve. Don't let that happen to you. So I think online angst needs to be accounted for. It needs to be questioned now and then, like, hey, are you spending too much time on this? Parasocial relationships fuel this in addition to money, right? So the fear of losing viewership, losing community for the sake of dollars is unfortunate. I think it's unhealthy, in my opinion. And it's something that we can probably, as a society, change, but we will not. So you and I and individuals have to make sure we are watching what's happening to ourselves and the people around us. Don't get stuck in this, and don't hand your life over to these other platforms that are only in it for the money. Profitability reigns. And when you're thinking the same way, but you don't have an entire corporation and shareholders behind you, when it's just you in your bedroom, and that becomes your entire livelihood and your reason for existing, time to take a step back. Follow Tom Scott, Matt Pat, and many others. Check out those videos. Definitely watch Tom Scott at the Royal Institute. Totally fascinating. I'm going to leave it there. Don't forget, this is probably ironic, buymeacoffee.com/DanHugo. I put the links to all my stuff there. I need to pretty it a bit. It's the Buy Me a Coffee platform is not ideal for publishing things. I have to be honest. Maybe they're too interested in that click on the Buy Me a Coffee payment thing. Don't feel pressured. You don't have to buy me a coffee. You don't have to do anything that costs you money. But if you want to, great. The money goes for coffee. There will be more content that's topical. I'm not in the business of content creation. It's more adjacent to other things I'm working on. But you can hear about what I'm working on, and you can join the conversation as well. So that's all the more monetization and advertising that I'm into. Let's see where that goes. As far as the content, again, you don't have to buy me a coffee. If you want to, great. If not, great. If you're in Vegas, we can just meet at a coffee shop. You don't have to buy me anything. And I'll leave it there. Thank you for listening.